Hello, my name is Tommy Pigott. Welcome to this week's Republican Rundown. This week we wanted to talk about one of the fundamental campaign promises that Joe Biden made, that he wouldn't raise taxes on the middle class. It's a promise he has repeated time and time again. Here's a recent example.
No one in America will pay a single penny more in federal taxes if they make less than $400,000 a year. I wish I was able to do that.
Now, putting aside that Biden has made millions of dollars since leaving the vice presidency, that is a lie. Biden has already raised the tax burden on the middle class. Take, for example, his inflation tax. Because of Biden's wasteful spending, prices are up 19.4%, including the cost of necessities. That is a direct tax on the American people because that inflation has been fueled by Biden's spending. There's no such thing as a free lunch, and that's the perfect example. But even beyond inflation, which is hammering middle-class families, Biden has directly raised the tax burden through his tax policy. Biden's so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which is really a scam, has increased the tax burden on middle-class families. According to the Tax Foundation, most of the tax burden would fall on the middle class. In fact, after-tax income for every single tax bracket would fall because of that Biden inflation scam. The Heritage Foundation also found that the majority of the tax burden from those tax increases would fall on families making less than $200,000 a year. Now, if that weren't enough, as part of that scam, Biden wanted to increase the number of IRS agents auditing the middle class. He wanted to send tens of billions of dollars to the IRS, an agency which already disproportionately targets middle-class families. Most of the audits that the IRS conducts go after families earning less than $200,000 a year, by a vast margin. Now, Biden pumping more money into the IRS would lead to more audits for the middle class. Janet Yellen herself said the proportion of audits that existed before the Biden inflation scam would remain consistent after it, meaning that percentage of audits targeting the middle class would stay the same, meaning as there's more audits for the middle class. Now, a powerful example of this is how Biden is targeting Americans who use payment transfer apps like Venmo. Biden wants to target Americans that collect $600 on these payment transfer apps, with IRS forms and the IRS going after these users. Experts say that could result in 710,000 new IRS forms for small businesses. Biden is clearly targeting the middle class and small businesses with the tax increases he has already put into place. But what makes it worse is that Biden now wants to have one of the largest tax increases in American history. Here's Biden promising that under his watch, President Trump's tax cuts will be eliminated.
By the way, that tax cut expires next year, okay? Well, let me tell you something. It's going to say expired and dead forever if I'm elected. But anyway.
The comparison between the success of President Trump's tax cuts versus the failure of Biden's spending could not be more stark. After President Trump passed those tax cuts, the average American got a tax cut of over $1,200. We saw real medium incomes increase across the board, and we saw the economy thriving. After Biden forced through his inflationary spending, we've seen real incomes fall. We've seen real weekly earnings decline by almost 4% under Joe Biden. And we've seen that inflation that was fueled by that spending. President Trump's tax cuts were a success, and Biden promising to eliminate them is a de facto increase of taxes on the middle class. Here's a recent Fox News report outlining just how much Biden wants to raise taxes on middle-class families.
President Biden is promising to let Trump-era tax cuts expire next year if he wins a second term, meaning that millions of Americans could soon face even steeper tax bills. Let's bring in Charles Payne, host of Making Money with Charles Payne on Fox Business.
Good morning.
Just to show everybody on the screen so we know what we're talking about. Call for number one is the tax cuts set to expire and the impact on married filers. That's how much everybody would pay more. So, for example, if you have two kids, you're looking at $2,400 more. 3 kids, $7,500. With tax cuts set to expire for single filers, you're looking again, that's a pretty hefty sum. Now,
so after years of relentless inflation hammering middle-class families, Biden now wants to raise the taxes on the middle class while bragging about it. He's openly bragging that he wants to raise taxes on the middle class, a clear violation of that promise not to raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 per year. That's a flat-out lie. This is part of a $4.9 trillion tax proposal from Joe Biden to increase taxes by that amount, the largest tax hike in American history. That means an average increased tax burden of $36,000 per American family. Now, you'd think if you were raising taxes this much, we might at least be paying down the debt and deficit, but you'd be wrong, because Biden wants to increase spending more than he wants to increase taxes. We're talking about a proposed budget of close to $8 trillion, meaning that if Biden's proposal was put into place, we'd be spending 38 cents for every dollar just on interest on the national debt. That is the opposite of fiscal responsibility. So Biden wants to raise taxes on the middle class. He wants to increase spending, passing that burden on to future generations, while wasting your money and fueling inflation. That's the definition of a lose, lose, lose. And another example of why Americans trust President Trump more than Biden on the economy by massive margins. Bidenomics is a failure, and now Biden wants to double down on Bidenomics by raising taxes even more on the middle class. This has been the Republican Rundown. Tune in next week for more.